I think this is true, especially with what we're about to talk about. So Jimmy Dore is an anti-liberal. He's a class reductionist, and he's anti the current social um, structure, essentially. So that means he doesn't care that much about the left. He cares more about being authoritarian populist in a sense. So if he sees a Nazi, for example, say, hey, I don't like liberals, and say, hey, I don't like the government, Jimmy Dore is going to be like, really? I don't like liberals either, and I don't like the government. And the Nazi says, I don't like the current social standings. And Jimmy Dore says, really? I also don't like the current social standings. So Jimmy Dore thinks, hey, Nazi, how about you and me join together to take down the libs? Let's own the libs together, Nazi. But Jimmy Dore's idea of the end goal is far different from the Nazis' idea of the end goal. So the populist left and the populist right think they like each other, when in reality they just agree that there are problems and they both hate liberalism. The far left's idea of the future is different from the far right's. If that weren't the case, the far right would be on the far populist left. If you think about it, like a show, Rising, with Crystal Ball and Sagar, they always complain about liberals. They always complain about Democrats. They always complain about establishment Republicans. But Sagar's vision of the future is much different from Crystal Ball's. The lefties that participate in this, like ritual with these people on the far right, are useful idiots and are harmful and always have been harmful to leftism throughout all of history. Literally all of history. The number one mistake people on the left have made is trusting people on the populist right. Jimmy Dore is platforming radicalized Michigan anarchist who is seeking unity with the left, a literal white supremacist Jimmy Dore wants to work with. So he doesn't want to work with the squad, the most powerful progressive leaders in probably American history in the House. By the way, isn't it really interesting that Jimmy Dore, Breonna Joy Gray, Nico House, working with Nazis, forced to vote, burning your bust, class reductionism, isn't it interesting how all these things are related? And he wants to work with the Boogaloo boys and literal Nazis. And he thinks they're friends because they both hate liberals.
Hey, a few days ago, I played a video of a guy speaking at the Michigan State Capitol, and to me, he looked like a right-wing gun guy. But his speech was super surprising. He identifies as a Boogaloo boy, and the young man reached out to us, and I had the opportunity to hear straight from the source, which is always better. So corporate media can't be trusted, and corporate media is about creating fear and sensationalism, and I'm going to presume that this guy is genuine. The question I always think about is, how do we reach out to fellow working people like this? How do we find common interests? There are no
fellow working people
easy answers, and these are always uncomfortable questions. And I'm not just talking about this in an academic theory kind of way, but in real world terms. We can't ignore this is happening in the country, and it's going to get worse. Working people are being brutalized. People are alienated, disillusioned. People know they've been abandoned by their government, and now they're looking for community. They're looking for tribes and looking for connection, because we
yes.
live in a failed state and a failed society. This pandemic has made it...
I agree. Kulinski isn't full class reductionist. He is kind of just like lazy with it. I don't think if you really pushed him on it, I think he would admit that there's much more to the picture, but yeah.
Explicitly clear.
As a result of what he does sound class reductionist-y.
That our government has abandoned its people. And how do we talk to them? Is the left going to turn into Hillary Clinton and call them deplorables and discard them? Instead of demonizing people because they don't hold the exact same set-in-stone ideology...
All right. Normal Republican voters who literally fell to Trump because of economic populism, those people are much different from literal white supremacists.
We have. And if you actually traveled around America, as I have, you will find people's ideologies are wildly inconsistent and always in flux and constantly changing. If there are people who are pro-LGBTQ, against war, against the corporate dominance of the state, people who reject the two-party duopoly and who work alongside black...
Oh, yeah, and these people who are like, if the government came down, like, say the far left and far right came together in a revolution to take down the government, like, every power structure in the U.S. is leaning right. It's fascistic. It's the police state. It's the military state. The left never gains power And also the elite interests are on the right. This happened many times throughout history, but one big example is Mussolini, who ran as a communist, but he wanted a revolution. The ruling class in that society and in every society makes sure that if there's a revolution, say there's a government, if there's a revolution, the government always falls onto the left, and that's your left. So, or to the right, I messed that up. But yeah, if there's a revolution, the ruling class makes sure that the revolution and the government always fall to the right, to fascism, because fascism supports the interests of the wealthy. Fascism maintains capital interests. Right-wing ideas maintains capital interests. So the ruling class will allow fascism to happen before they allow socialism to happen. They'll let Donald Trump win before they'll let Bernie Sanders win. And here's a picture. I don't feel like putting it actually on the screen. Oh, crap. Let me try to... This is what they see, basically. So that guy right there on the left is on the left. He says, wow, you mean you want to tear down that old eyesore too and build something new in its place? That's crazy. Maybe we're not so different after all. But then you see their visions of what the future actually looks like at the bottom. It's much, much different. This guy is for collectivism on the left, and the guy on the right is for nationalism, and that's not good. Obviously. Yeah, Dore's like a national socialist, which is essentially, I mean, it turns into a pretty fascistic government, reactionary, authoritarian force, right?
Lives Matter and Antifa, and they want a general strike? Well, we have to be able to talk to those people, because if we can't talk to those people, that's bad. That shows the weakness on our side. Yes, I would rather have the dudes with guns protecting Black Lives Matter protests instead of them threatening Black Lives Matter protests. Social movements should always be in dialogue. I presume this interview that I did with this young man is going to be used to attack me. And this interview is not an endorsement of any group, because I don't know how representative this person is of an entire group. I'm dropping the entire interview, and I think you'll find the conversation is full of surprises. All right, so we have our first guest on. I'm going to get in big trouble for talking to this gentleman.
Wait, you think the government's bad too? Oh, wait, KKK member. Come over here, KKK member. What? You want to take down the government? Let's work together. I know we disagree on some race issues, but...
We first saw our guest speak in a video of him in the front of the Michigan State Capitol. He made critiques of the war... of the wars, not just the war. He made critiques of the wars and the corporate-controlled...
We're watching this Jimmy Dore clip because this is the #1 mistake made by leftists throughout all of history. Literally all of history. This has not went well once for libertarian leftism. For authoritarian leftism, it went, it has gone all right.
State, he called for unity...
But we don't want state...
of the American people
nationalistic
and of social
socialism.
Movements. Huh? Well, let's play a little bit of it, shall we?
Antifa, Boogaloo, and right-wing militias, they are the antibodies, not the disease that is destroying our country. The disease is a country run by two corrupt political parties that do not care about
They always use this rhetoric, by the way. They're always going to say, like, for example, the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys always walk around with this bravado. They're like, hey, guys, we are the most diverse. We are the most diverse brand of white supremacist because they have some Latina members and they have some black members. But it doesn't matter. They use those people for optics. They use these people as Trojan horses, as tokens to get their more sinister plot across. This has been replicated all throughout history. We can read the books later or whatever.
So deeply incestuous with corporations that they're indistinguishable from each other. A government that spent 6 months debating whether to give their own people $600, but only 24 hours unanimously agreed to give billions of dollars to foreign tyrannical governments and corporations. A government that has bombed villages overseas my entire life for my supposed safety here. This is a call for unity. For all of American people that realize the true threat against us to come together. For every mother mourning her children that was killed by police. For every business crushed down by state lockdowns. For every broken soldier sent to fight wars that have no point. This is our last chance to avoid either a tyrannical government or a bloody and pointless civil war among American people who do not have that much against each other and have more in common than they realize. And a message to the government. We come in peace. We do not intend to commit violence, but I am pleading with you with tears in my eyes and cracks in my voice. If you continue to oppress the American people, it will remain rational no longer. Thank you.
I love fascism. Only if there's rainbows. If you have the rainbow flag, you're allowed to be fascist.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I played that with Ron Placone on our show the other day, and we couldn't find anything in that speech we disagreed with, and I wanted to explore his beliefs further. So he was kind enough to reach out to us, and he goes by the name, ready? Magnus Panvidya. And there's a story behind that name. Please welcome to the show, Magnus Panvidya. Hi, Howard. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks, Jammie. Nice to meet you. Kind of crazy that I'm here. I would have never expected to end up here, but long-time fan.
I would never expect to be talking to a right-wing guy in a Hawaiian shirt. I never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more of an anarchist, but
oh, okay, all right. We'll get it. So let's get into it. First of all, tell people how you got your name. Now, I found out that your parents were hippies.
Yeah, I was raised in the middle of nowhere next to a little pagan hippie commune that I used to go to. I used to be an environmental activist my whole...
Paganism, too. Paganism is a big red flag because neo-Nazis have taken paganism and taken all the symbols, all the images from it, and distorted the actual meaning of it. So you see the pagan, the QAnon shaman, that's all pagan lore. All the stuff he says, the shaman thing, the headdress, all the tattoos, that's all pagan lore. But they're so good, by the way, at being Trojan horses and hiding themselves within this identity that we are supposed to trust. So he's going to come across here in this interview, I guarantee it, and say, I'm pro BLM, I'm pro LGBT, I'm pro all of this stuff. Guarantee that's what he's going to say.
So yeah,
that's how they do it. And Jimmy Dore is here like, see guys, see he says government bad.
Expect for most people.
Wow. Okay. So, and how did you get the name?
We had to come up with kind of our own names on the commune. We didn't want to go by our own names, so everybody had their witchy, hippie, D&D names.
So the Boogaloo Boys is a group of people who are accelerationists. It's a coalition of anarchists and neo-Nazis, and their main goal is to overthrow the government so there's a societal collapse because they think that societal collapse will more quickly result in their utopia, or more quickly result in their ideal society.
Essentially. So I came up with that when I was like 13. I've used it ever since.
So now that is not, so are you...
This is literally a group of anarchists and neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis want to start a race war, and the other people just want to be accelerationist. I don't know what the exact end goal is of all of them.
Okay, so that is not what people think of when they think of right-wing militia types or the Proud Boys or Boogaloos or anything. That's not what they think. They don't think of a guy brought up on a commune, got to pick his own name, his parents are hippies, and he spent most of his life as an environmental activist. That's not what people think of. So how did you go...
By the way, Jimmy's going very hard to sell this.
Go from that to Boogaloo Boys.
Oh, that's just because kind of the whole thing the media doesn't talk about with the Boogaloo Boys is we're more of like the libertarian Green Party militia. Like if I wanted to join a regular militia that flies Confederate flags and it's a bunch of fat old white dudes, that's there. But we kind of formed out of a bunch of libertarians and anti-war activists and everything wanting a place of our own. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the colorful Hawaiian print and, a lot of our members being LGBT and, across the entire, every ethnicity, every spectrum. And we wanted more of a home for ourselves. So we kind of grew out of not wanting to be the traditional right-wing conservative white dude militia.
So you're not about hating gays and you don't hate the gays?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I was told that...
Matter of fact, I'm not the most straight man myself, so...
Oh, well, you better... Okay, watch out. So, Jude Law, is that your guy? That's my guy. I don't know who you...
Their literal goal, Mr. Zombie Killer, no matter what they say to soothe you, is to cause a societal collapse for accelerationism. That's their main goal. That's why they have that's why they have anarchists and neo-Nazis working together. Because their number one goal is for this society to collapse. Their number one goal is that there is some type of revolution. This is the mistake people on the left made all throughout history, thinking this is a good idea because they always get killed in the end. This is always how it's presented. They always slide in like, hey guys, we're super friendly, we're well-meaning, we hate the government too, we should help each other bring it down. And guess what happens all throughout history over and over and over and over again when that change finally does occur, when that big collapse finally does occur. It doesn't matter what he says, what he does, it matters what he's a part of and what the movement what the movement actually wants to do.
I don't know who you go for.
Orlando Bloom, actually.
Great choice.
Yeah, that's correct. There are many Norse pagans who are fighting against this, by the way. Many Norse pagans are fighting against neo-Nazis stealing their imagery and all that stuff.
So
they let me watch too much Lord of the Rings as a kid.
So now I already got in trouble for even playing your video on my... When I say in trouble, I mean the usual bad faith attackers came at me, the people who want to keep us divided, the people who take corporate money, that kind of stuff. Now tell me about because since I played your video, other blue check reporter types have been sending me news articles about how the Boogaloo boys are violent racists and terrorists, and they even killed a cop, and a couple of them got arrested on the way to a rally, a Black Lives Matter, and they had explosives. Now that's not made up, right? I saw it on 60 Minutes.
No, that's not made up, and obviously we're an entire national movement. Hundreds of thousands of people. You're gonna have idiots. You're gonna have accelerationists and extremists and people that do things that we don't want them to do. And it's become even harder now that we're banned off of all social media that we can't even keep track of the idiots in our movement and deal with them. So that's been fun.
Oh, so you're saying that by suppressing the speech of the most extreme members and the most violent members, it's now hard to tell who they are.
Yeah, and a lot of people on Twitter and everything will be like, oh, you guys might not be neo-Nazis, but there are neo-Nazi Boogaloo people. And I'm like, well, I don't know where they are. I can't find them or talk to them. They're on a million different websites, so I can't deal with them. We can't go out and purge these people from our movement because we've been blown all over the internet. When we were all on Facebook, we had this under control. We never had this problem. But once we got banned off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I even got banned off of Google and PayPal.
I know. And so you're saying the censoring of people more extreme than you, and actually people who are violent, the censoring of their speech is now actually creating a bigger problem because it's harder to identify those people and weed them out.
Absolutely. Like when we were all on Facebook and we would be in group messenger and everything, and a guy was like, oh, I had a really bad day. I think I'm just going to, do something stupid. I'm going to fly off the handle. We can't wait any longer. We could all talk him down and be like, no, that's stupid. Don't go out and do that. That's not what we're about. And we could all work that out. Now that guy is on some parlor chat buried deeply around a bunch of really iffy people egging him on. And there's no one there to tell.
It doesn't matter about talking to radical people and becoming one. It means you're platforming somebody like this and you're giving the Boogaloo boys a positive brand. And you see how he's playing everything off? Yeah, I'm pro. I told you exactly what he was going to say. I'm pro-gay. I'm pro-black. Oh, the neo-Nazis in our group? I don't even know where they are. This organization is too big for me to understand that. Huh. We just have units of people with full military gear that are stroking accelerationism. And I'm not on the left. I'm some type of anarchist. I'm for a deterioration of society, but I'm not going to talk about that. I don't know what happens after society collapses, but I just want to help make it collapse. And the best way to help make it collapse is to get the far left and far right and make them join together. Because we all hate the government, right? Let's bring the government down.
Tell him, hey, that's not what this movement's about. We're not here to just go out and shoot cops and commit terrorist attacks. It's never been what it's about.
So I've been told that the Boogaloo boys want a racial civil war.
I'm trying to find the documents from. There's one about Mussolini and there's one about 1930 or 1929. Oh, or is it 1930 Germany? I'm trying to find that. That's why I'm quiet right now.
No, not at all. The whole calling it a Boogaloo, the whole meme behind it was just that it's a bad sequel to original because it came from the Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo movie, which was just a bad sequel to a bad movie. And in our context, it just means some form of civil conflict, whether that be a peaceful singing revolution, whether that be some awful government civil war, whether that be a second revolutionary civil war, or to the idiot neo-Nazi types, they would consider it a race war. And that's a meme that's been around forever. So when it comes to us, we are more of we view this as a upcoming, hopefully peaceful second American revolution where all of these groups, like I talked about, come together and we tell these giant corporations and these two political parties that we're done with them. We don't want them anymore. And it's time to go.
And so you do understand, though, when people see you dressed in military gear with your beard and you're carrying an AR-15 or whatever that is, that immediately it scares the shit out of people. And that they think all bad things about you, that you are racist, that you want violence. And, because the president just stoked the violence on January 6th and stuff like that. So you do understand that, though, right?
Yeah, I get it. I have disagreements with it, but especially after this whole summer and everything, I've traveled around to a lot of events, and I can tell you now, everyone has guns. The BLM protesters have guns. The Proud Boys have guns. We have guns. The cops have guns. Everybody's walking around really armed. I had a gun pulled on me in Detroit over this summer by bikers when I was doing security for a BLM event, which was funny. So
you did security for a BLM event? How did that come about?
Because before the mainstream media even wrote a single article about us, we had blown up everywhere because all across the country, we were showing up to George Floyd events because the unreported story behind all of this is we have a lot in common with the Breonna Taylor story. because within 48 hours of what happened to Breonna Taylor, separately in Maryland, a man named Duncan Lemp was killed in a no-knock raid. The police shot him through his window and shot his pregnant girlfriend. They then lied about why they got the warrant. They lied and said they shot him from inside the building when it came out only 2 weeks ago, almost a year later, they killed him from outside of the building. So then we started going out as libertarians, going out to BLM events with, Breonna Taylor signs, Duncan Lemp signs, being like, hey, this is across the political spectrum. This police state thing that's going on, they're killing everybody. And we're out here and we're in support. We disagree with this. So all summer long, we did both marched in solidarity and in some.
And I do advocate for bringing people together. My main line when I talk to people is they want us separated on race issues, but we should come together to fight as one working class or whatever. I do advocate for that rhetoric, but I don't advocate for accelerationism. I don't advocate for deterioration of society like they do. That's a big difference when it comes to outcomes. And it always sounds like a great, colorful idea. We are going to come together. We're going to have this big revolution. And let's say, in the best scenario, let's say this guy's intentions are perfectly pure. This guy wants an amazing world for everybody, and he truly does believe everything he's saying. Even with that, the outcomes of what he's saying are for extreme far-right authoritarian power to take control. Those are the outcomes.
Places did security for BLM events where you had these other groups coming to fight people. And we were welcomed with open arms across all of these. Like, I can send you a million Facebook posts and live stream of people being like, we're so happy you're here. We love you. And then the media establishment caught wind that there was armed white libertarian dudes marching in support with a bunch of socialists and BLM and everything. And they said, unacceptable. And they dropped the hammer. And that's when all of the Department of Homeland Security and anti-extremist researchers came out of the woodwork and like, oh, these are white supremacists. These are evil people. They're only there to kill people and everything. And the ride began.
So you were actually welcomed by Black Lives Matter. You actually provided security for Black Lives Matter. You actually marched in solidarity against police violence because you realize it's not a left-right issue. It's a us against them issue, right? It's the
Absolutely.
cops against us. It's the establishment against us, and the laws all favor them, and it protects them. And you're right. I think I agree with that.
Oh my God, we're not responding to Jimmy Dore. We're responding to the overall idea and the overall consequences of this kind of thought and these conversations and platforming somebody like this and making these ideas seem like something that's going to work. That's what we're talking about. Who cares about Jimmy Dore? He just happens to be the person that soaks up every piece of toxic influence. That's why you see Nico House working with literal Nazis, because Nico House and Jimmy Dore agree on everything. They agree on literally all the class reductionist stuff. They agree on all this big flashy, like we're gonna come together and topple liberal democracy. We're gonna bring up a socialist utopia where everybody's gonna have free healthcare in 1 year because the only reason we don't have it is because the squad isn't gonna be revolutionary enough, and AOC isn't gonna go into the House and actually just demand Medicare for all right now. AOC is too much of a pussy to do that. That's what they think. They all agree on that stuff. Why is Nico House working with literal Nazis? Literal Nazis. It's not even a joke. Like, I did multiple videos on this. This is a big trend of thought throughout all of left history that we're talking about. Who cares about Jimmy Dore? It just happens that he is the person who is dumb enough to fall into all of these traps. Literally every trap imaginable, Jimmy Dore is there. Like, guys, this is gonna work. Like, it was with such a cartoonish view of politics. And I am dealing online right now. I am doing YouTube stuff. In real life politics, this doesn't matter as much. But overall, for leftism, this is a big freaking deal. I'm not going to talk 24 hours a day about freaking political pragmatism, about literal policies. There's not I'm doing real shit behind the scenes. This is political hobbyism to an extent, of course.
How could you disagree with that? How about, and so tell us some more. Would the majority of the Boogaloo boys agree with your sentiments that you said in that video and what you're saying right now? Would the majority of the Boogaloo...
I'm not actually mad. I'm just talking loud.
Boys agree with you?
Absolutely. Like, it pretty much our core foundation is if you're not a bigoted piece of shit and you understand that both parties are the problem and you're willing to do something about it and you're willing to get out in the streets and you're willing to make your voice heard, you're welcome. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you do. In that video, it doesn't show it, but I walked in, the woman standing next to me is a local BLM organizer for Lansing, Michigan, and I walked in with the local anti-fascist organization as well. So it wasn't just us standing up there. It was the local BLM, it was local anti-fascist organization, and it was the Boogaloo. And we kind of represent this idea we've been pushing of the Unity Coalition. And we're growing pretty big in both Kentucky, Ohio and Michigan, to where we've been marching together constantly. There's a Boogaloo group in Kentucky, in Louisville, called the United Pharaohs Guard that's been out with BLM protesters every day since the very beginning, and they're welcome with open arms.
So, do you know the history of people who do this kind of thing? You know what it is, right? The people who try to combine the populist left, the populist right, to fight the establishment. You know the history of people who do this, right?
Fascism wins?
Yeah, we get mysteriously disappeared.
Yeah, and killed out in the open. I mean, that's what they do. That's what they did to Fred Hampton when he did this. But you're going to do it anyway. So you reach out to the Black Lives Matter. You reach out to Antifa. The Boogaloo Boys reach out to Antifa. The Black Lives Matter. You march. You're anti-war. You're for peace. You're against racism. You're against police brutality. What would be some other big things?
Pro sex work decriminalization, legalize all drugs, end all the wars, close the ICE.
The assassination of Fred Hampton, or did he just bring up Fred Hampton to use him as like his token for this argument? I don't know. Jimmy Dore often brings up these names and tries to associate them with his argument to make him, to like appeal to them, to make his argument sound better, I guess. Well, that's the thing though. I use some of the same rhetoric when I talk to people. It's not about, you know, we need to come together. They're using race to divide the lower class. But what really matters are the outcomes of what kind of rhetoric you're choosing, and also what your end goal is. Because he's trying to gloss over the glaring racism by bringing in a radical black dude. Reaching across two radicals is about creating international proletariat revolution, not driving accelerationism. Okay, but the issue is, if the radicals you are reaching across to are for accelerationism and they're from the far right, that is different. There's a difference between reaching radical groups when those radical groups don't have the intentions that the Boogaloo Boys do. I'm not saying we're against radical in general. That's not the thing. This is bad radical all throughout history. That's the thing with Jimmy Dore as well. He's anti-liberal, so every other form of anything other than liberal, any radical position is going to be something he likes because he's so anti-liberal. Yeah, 100%. Apple Boom. Like, you say, why aren't you on the left? If you're on the populist right, whatever that means, why aren't you on the left? If we really agree on so much, why are you not on the left?
Well, I want to say who are your political opposites, but they're not, because the whole point of your thing is that we have a lot of agreement. And so what I've said on this show is that, you know, the problems we're facing right now aren't left-right issues. They're oppressive issues that affect all of us. And so we have to fight those first so we can get back to fighting a left-right issue.
This conversation is like Walmart brand Hampton. Walmart brand Fred Hampton. Like, this is what Jimmy Dore's vision of what Hampton wanted is. This is the whitewashed version where Jimmy Dore just thinks like hating liberals is the only ideology that matters.
That's what I look for. That's almost a luxury, being able to fight Democrats, Republicans. Right now, we know there's one party of war, one party of Wall Street, one party of big pharma and health insurance companies and fossil fuel companies. They own all, and Silicon Valley, by the way, which is why we're all being censored.
Yep.
So that, to me, that's the bigger problem right now that affects left, right, center, middle. It's a class war that we're in right now, right? You feel that it's a class war?
Absolutely, and that's where we butt into it with conservative groups a lot, because we're very anti-police, and they're like, why do you not support the police and everything? And it's like, well, as a gun owner, who's going to come and take that gun? The cops. As someone who likes marijuana, who's going to come and arrest me for that? The cops. So, you know, we run into that trying to explain to people that, like, no, it is the top versus the bottom. It is not the left versus the right. We can argue about healthcare when we're not dropping bombs on foreign countries. We can argue about, you know, how much we put into public education when people aren't having their doors kicked in and killed in their homes. Right. And it turns out to be the wrong address. There's more important things going on.
So we shouldn't focus on actual systemic issues. We should focus on things that only make us really angry in the short term. We shouldn't focus on healthcare reform. We shouldn't focus on the bigger picture. Very convenient, right? Very convenient that he doesn't want to focus on the bigger picture and the systemic changes. He only wants to focus on these things that start civil unrest, that start anger. Really, you know.
Well, so yeah, like so we would agree on the war. We would agree
it's
on.
It's not like healthcare reform or criminal justice reform or, you know, electoral politics or any of that. It's not like that's going to affect foreign policy. It's not like that's going to affect police reform. Like, wow. It's really funny he doesn't want to talk about those broader issues.
The corporate control of our government. We would agree on
after Hitler, our turn. Yeah.
Police brutality. We're not going to agree on the Second Amendment. And we probably won't. What about healthcare? Because what do you? You know what? I'll tell you what. I go back and forth on the Second Amendment. I was always against guns, and then I was like, well, the only people who don't have guns in the country are the citizens. The cops have them. And then I went.
If you want to go into that really quick, I actually had. I'm assuming they were neo-Nazis, but I'm not sure. Show up to my house in the middle of the night after a protest and scream things I couldn't say on YouTube at my window at 3 a.m. And I called the police, and they told me they couldn't do anything about it, and that they weren't even going to show up to do a wellness check. So that's.
It's frustrating, though. There's recently been a rise from the pragmatic left in not criticizing Biden. Do you know how bad you look criticizing a president who just got sworn in 3 days? 3 days ago, 4 days ago? If I just made 50 videos criticizing Biden, do you know how bad I'd look to regular liberals? You know how dumb that is? It's not smart. You know, the time for that is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in. Right now, I just look like a petulant child that wanted Bernie to win, honestly. It is true. To maximize the well-being of more people, you do need to improve on the current system. A complete degradation of what we have right now would hurt so many people, and we'd never be able to heal from it. Reformism really is the only route right now to improving material conditions in America. You're not going to literally topple the government and have anything be better than people. Owning the libs isn't all that matters. If you really want better outcomes, you're going to play the game, you're going to try to win the game. And you're going to try to beat the rules and play outside the rules of the game at the same time. Inside action, outside action, force as much progress as you can. There's no realistic world in which a utopia will be achieved by toppling liberals or whatever they think there is. We're dealing in reality here. We're trying to help people. We're going to help people as much as possible. We're going to keep on having ideological debates. We're going to keep on having different debates on how to act in this system. But accelerationism never is going to work. It's never supposed to work. It's literally impossible. Is it better to keep on pushing for change, like Medicare for all, and only getting incremental change? Or is it better to let the United States completely collapse for people in general? Letting the U.S. collapse, is that helping anybody? Is that going to be a net gain for material conditions or for human life? If we can't get Medicare for all, would you rather live in the Matrix or die? I don't know.